Hello, friends. Schools don't fail for lack of effort. They struggle because vision and practice drift apart. Let me show you how we can bridge that gap. Schools are full of energy, full of ideas, and lots of demands. Every teacher, every leader, every board member wants the best for the students, yet too often the work feels somewhat fragmented. There are endless books and educational gurus with different theories and competing priorities, administrative demands and reporting, and new initiatives get layered on top of old ones. The weight of it all can feel overwhelming. What's missing isn't more information. What's missing is clarity, a way to see the bigger picture, a way to connect the school's vision to daily practice, a way to make the invisible visible, a way to help people see the same things at the same time so we can be working from the same page. This is where the learning deck concept begins. At its heart are just 6 principles: 3 for teaching, inform, inquire, inspire, and 3 for learning, enjoy, engage, empower. Together, they create a visually simple map of learning, a framework of 9 learning impacts, the 9 map, that turns the complexity of pedagogy into something that you can literally hold in your hand. Why does that matter? Well, because teachers and schools don't need another theory. Schools are really complex organizations. Complex because they sit at the intersection of people and purpose and a lot of pressure. They're not just workplaces, they're communities, they're learning ecosystems, and they're public institutions all at the same time. They balance long-term vision with daily demands. They serve very diverse stakeholders with differing expectations. And they operate in environments shaped by culture and policy and emotion and change and young people. Every decision affects students, affects staff, it affects families, it affects people's futures, often in ways that are hard to predict or neatly control. And with all of this complexity, we need to find every opportunity we can to streamline wherever we can. We need a shared language, a shared understanding. We need a way to see how daily choices connect student experiences in their learning, a way to connect learning with teaching and with the management and leadership of a community of learners. The learning deck makes learning visible. It condenses the noise of countless books and articles into a handful of cards, each one purposefully succinct, a prompt for reflection, design, or dialogue. It provides a shared language and approach to teaching and learning through the principles and the profiles, and have practical strategies for teachers, for assessment for learning, for approaches to learning, for support for learning, and language for learning. And because inquiry is at the heart of good teaching, questions for learning. It's simple but never simplistic. And for teachers who ask not just the why we teach, but how, the Praxis Deck is the answer. It goes into the detail of classroom practice, routines, questioning, feedback, and strategies that bring the learning deck to life in daily action. It expands on each of the profiles here and provides concrete strategies for developing impactful pedagogy. It's the bridge between principle and practice, the place where the theory becomes the craft. Yet we understand that teaching is only one part of the story. Schools depend on leadership, and leadership faces its own invisible pressures. That's why the lead deck takes the same logic and applies it to the work of leaders. The concept of the same 6 principles apply. 3 for leading: inform, inquire, inspire. 3 leadership principles of influence: enjoy, engage, empower, that leads to 9 impact profiles that show how different leadership approaches create different kinds of impact. It gives leaders a mirror to see themselves more clearly, to understand their strengths and recognize their gaps that hold them back. It provides the visual map to help recognize when one approach may be proving to be more impactful than another. And it gives teams a language to talk about leadership without judgment, to align around what good leadership looks like in their context. But leadership isn't only about profiles. It's lived in conversations, especially the difficult ones. The frame deck gives leaders a way to step into those moments with clarity and calm. You don't need a script, you need a compass. And the frame deck helps you enter difficult conversations with direction, not rigidity. It helps you focus on the goal, to regulate your emotions, to map solutions, and leave with commitments at the end of the meeting. It certainly doesn't take away the tension of the meeting, but it makes the pathway through that difficult conversation more visible. For many leaders, this is the difference between avoiding the hard talk and leading it with confidence. Especially important if you're a leader lying awake at night before a tough conversation, to know that you can plan a way through it. It's not a script, it's a structure. The frame deck provides insights into how to be better prepared for the difficult conversations ahead. You know the ones: difficult staff, parents, even boards. And includes the language traps that other people set in tense situations and how you can avoid them. Leaders also face decisions that ripple across the school. Certainly in moments of crisis, but particularly when planning change, the plans deck is the compass. It guides leaders to pause, to define problems well, to look at the bigger picture, to act decisively while keeping the long view in sight. Inquire cards ask generative questions to prompt some lateral thinking and to dig beyond the immediate problem. Pause, zoom out, see the system, not just the symptom. Once again, curated scenarios help think through different approaches. Decisions become less reactive and more reflective, more coherent. Plan when it's calm, lead when it counts. And that coherence is what keeps a school steady when the pressure rises. Of course, leadership is never solo. Schools run on teams that thrive on trust, focus, and a shared purpose. The team deck is designed for those spaces, especially useful for those new to leadership demands. With strategies and coaching tools, it helps teams move beyond surface talk. Generative questions don't just solve problems, they uncover purpose, and the quality of your questions shapes the clarity of your vision. The team deck helps build psychological safety and strengthen collaboration. It allows teams to pause and to ask the questions that too often go unspoken. And when decisions feel urgent, the right question helps you to slow down and look wider. But decisions are only part of the challenge. Leadership also means facing hidden patterns that quietly undermine progress. Stress, misalignment, mistrust, these forces shape culture long before they show up in outcomes. Leaders often sense a kind of tension, but they struggle to name it, to identify it. And it's hard to have a conversation about something that you can't name, let alone really address it. And this is where the Dynamics Deck comes in. It's a diagnostic and development tool that makes leadership dynamics visible. It's designed specifically for school leaders and HR professionals to help identify and address the culture and behaviors that shape a school. It's built on a familiar structure of a simple 3x3 framework, albeit conceptually different, and considers the domain of practice. What type of work is this? Is this relational? Is it about relationships, trust, inclusion, communication? Is it operational? Is it about the execution, so routines and processes and accountability? Or is it strategic, about direction, about vision, priorities, and long-term alignment? And the second axis is the sphere of influence. Where is this happening? Is it self? Is it showing up maybe in my own habits, my own mindset? Is it team? It's showing up in the group dynamics. Or is it system? It's showing up across the whole organization. Together, the Dynamics Deck helps leaders identify patterns in themselves and in the teams and in the system, not as labels or judgments, but as dynamics that can be identified, that can be put on the table to triangulate dialogue without blame. Not finger pointing or whose opinion is more important, rather a way to bridge the gap to better dialogue. Central to the Dynamics Deck are micro scenarios to give people the mental breathing space to see issues from a different perspective. And for the coach or HR professional, scenario insights to give you the strategies for developing good conversations. Cognitive reframes and practice builders help turn defensiveness into dialogue and dysfunction into growth. For schools, this is transformative because culture isn't abstract. It's lived every day in how people relate, how they prioritize, and how they lead. The Dynamics Deck equips leaders and HR professionals to see those patterns clearly and to be able to act on them. It's not just about solving problems, it's about building a healthier, more resilient school. And above the day-to-day operations of the school sits governance. Boards are entrusted with responsibility that's both inspiring and daunting. The Board Deck offers trustees clear principles of governance and profiles of impact. It turns abstract roles into practical conversations. It equips boards to balance oversight with vision and service with strategy. It brings clarity to the roles and responsibilities where there's often confusion, so boards can truly support the mission of the school. Especially important for the board member who wants to help but doesn't know how. The Board Deck features a familiar 3x3 matrix to help illustrate the different modes of governance, supported by purposefully succinct yet insightful cards and practices so that boards can recognize good practice and see their roles and responsibilities with clarity. The Board Deck is supported by carefully curated scenarios to help new and established board members unpack the principles of good governance. And of course, inquiry cards, because great governance starts with better questions. Each deck is modular. Each deck stands alone, but share common threads. Together, they form a complete suite. They share the same DNA, simplicity with depth, principles that apply across contexts, and tools that spark reflection and action. Clarity from complexity. Why does it matter? Well, because schools are human systems. They're complex, yes, but they don't have to be complicated. These decks that form the Synnovate Suite strips away the excess and brings us back to what matters. Just enough information in just the right form to move people forward. Tactile and succinct by design to help visualize connected thinking. Elegant parsimony. Tools for thinking, systems for leading. From classrooms to boardrooms, the Synnovate Suite makes the invisible visible so schools can focus on what matters most. Learning that changes lives. Across classrooms, teams, and schools. Find out more on learningdeck.com.